Representative Shankland, thank you for being here today. I'm Wausau Mayor Katie Rosenberg, as you know. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. We're here to talk about the legislation and some of the new requests for funding for municipal and community PFAS testing and remediation. So I understand there are multiple press conferences taking place today about PFAS funding, and I also think that this specific one is going to have a different flavor than the rest of those across the state. First of all, I continue to be so grateful that both Governor Evers and the Wisconsin legislature prioritized $125 million for impacted communities like Wausau. That funding will be critical, but only once it's released by our partners in state government. And so there are three truths about this funding that I'm going to just share with you. So first, I know that folks like State Senator Coles have been working diligently on several different versions of this PFAS funding trailer bill, and it's faced the gamut of public hearing, testimony, criticism, amendments, and analysis, and it still hasn't had its day in the Assembly. So second, I also know that we're getting impatient as we approach the half-year mark from the state biennial budget being passed and signed, and yet we still don't have the criteria for PFAS spending codified in state law. But third, the people of Wausau don't care about partisan politicking related to this bill. They want support on funding the immediate issues related to PFAS, and they want it now. So I don't have to rehash everything related to our PFAS journey. All of us here in Wausau and central Wisconsin and possibly the state and region have already lived it for nearly 2 years. We tested our drinking water wells for PFAS in January of 2022. Every single one of our wells had elevated levels of PFAS, and since then the city of Wausau has continued pressing forward on remediation and cost recovery on our own. And so what that looked like is we've continued regular testing. We've finished construction on this brand new drinking water treatment facility. We've deployed a temporary PFAS solution. We've begun construction on our permanent granular activated carbon PFAS treatment facility. We've begun testing on our wastewater for PFAS. We've entered into a multi-district litigation suit. We filed a local lawsuit in an attempt to recover millions of dollars in costs associated with PFAS remediation. And this whole time, it has been ratepayers and the people of Wausau who've been footing those bills. So the ratepayers of Wausau should not have to pay for other people's pollution, and they should not have to continue waiting months and months for state support. And that's why we're begging our partners and advocates in state government to put partisan politics aside and get together and craft a bill that the legislature and the governor can live with so the DNR can release funding for our municipalities like Wausau. We are already halfway there. But we got to get beyond partisan politics here. Again, I'm calling on Democrats and Republicans to get together in the same room, hash out the necessary details to get the support out, and the real people of Wausau, of Campbell, of Peshtigo, of Marinette, and all of the rest who are waiting not just for funding for drinking water, but also for legislation related to groundwater standards. So my message is let's get together and let's get the work done for the people of Wausau and the people of Wisconsin. With that, I'm going to pass it over to State Representative Katrina Shankland.
Thank you so much, Mayor Rosenberg, and the people of Wausau are incredibly lucky to have you leading the charge on PFAS remediation, cost recovery, holding polluters accountable, and ensuring that down the road we have a long-term strategy at the state level, partnering with our local leaders like you. So I'm really grateful to be here today in central Wisconsin, and especially grateful to be back at this amazing drinking water treatment facility. I really appreciate the work that's been put in to make this facility work and to help the people of Wausau have clean drinking water. But Mayor Rosenberg is right, they should not have to pay. You should not have to pay as an individual for the cost of remediation when your water is contaminated due to no fault of your own. But that's the state of the game here in Wisconsin right now, primarily because on the state level, we still do not have the action and urgency as well as gravity that's really needed in this situation. We've known about the seriousness of PFAS for about 5 years now, and the state has taken a few steps to lead on PFAS, but we have way more to do. And in the last year especially, we've made huge progress in getting a $125 million trust fund established on the state level specifically for PFAS. But if that $125 million is sitting in a pot of money in Madison without any legislative action to release it, that's a problem. So today, Governor Evers did two really important things. One, he submitted what's called a 1310 request. Essentially what that does is it's an official request sent to the Budget Committee, our state's Joint Finance Committee, to specifically have the DNR ask for some of those $125 million in total. It's $116.3 million for next year, fiscal year 24, and then $8.6 million for the year after that, fiscal year 25, with a plan for how to spend that money. And the Joint Finance Committee has the opportunity to review that, to have conversations with the governor and the DNR, to hold a hearing on it, and to either passively review and accept it or object and bring further discussion to the table. In the past, we have seen the Joint Finance Committee receive these 1310 requests and not act, period. And that's what I'm concerned about today. So I want to call on every single member of the Joint Finance Committee to take this request and expedite it and get those dollars out the door. I appreciate that the governor has a plan to spend the full $125 million between 2024 and 2025 because communities like Wausau cannot afford to wait another day. You all have had to pay within your ratepayer dollars and ratepayer increases for the cost of remediation, but the state could have helped, and that's why we're here today, to ask for that money to be released so that we can have a long-term plan to support our local units of government with infrastructure upgrades, resources for drinking water sampling, which is testing, and then temporary and interim water supply support as they're working toward the long-term drinking water recovery and remediation. It also would fund reduction efforts, public health interventions, research and destruction and disposal efforts of PFAS. So this plan is really holistic, and if my colleagues across the aisle don't like some of it, that's fine, but they have a responsibility to hold a public hearing immediately and approve what they do support and have conversations expediently on this matter, because in the past we have seen Joint Finance drag their feet on issues that are of serious import to the people of the state. If we would have released these funds sooner, cities like Wausau could have had their first crack at some of these dollars specifically related to infrastructure upgrades, and perhaps the ratepayers wouldn't have had to have such a high and steep increase in their rates. That's just one example. But there are other communities like Rhinelander, Peshtigo, Marinette, French Island, Town of Campbell, and more across Wisconsin who are struggling with the cost of contamination, not just to their local economy and their bottom line, their pocketbook, but also their health. When you're exposed to PFAS, that is not only a serious concern for health experts, but we're concerned about the long-term damage because it is a forever chemical. So it bioaccumulates in your body. So I want to make sure that people know this is urgent, and it's urgent for a reason. It's because PFAS is a health concern. Secondly, the governor also sent a letter today to 2 state senators who were leading the charge in the legislature on a bill called SB 312. That bill passed the Senate on a party line vote. It hasn't passed the Assembly, not even passed the Assembly Committee on Environment yet, of which I serve as ranking member. What this bill would do is there is a plan in the bill for how to spend some of this money. That being said, there's also disagreement over the way the bill changes DNR's enforcement abilities. So I've asked, and I know Mayor Rosenberg has asked as well, that we come together to pass the funding components that we support, because I certainly think there's bipartisan support for that, and negotiate the rest later, because once again, the people of Wausau cannot afford to wait a single day. They don't have the time or luxury to listen to partisan politicians decide for themselves when the best time is. They expect it now and they deserve it, period. So the governor asked both Senators Coles and Wimberger to introduce legislation that they had already agreed to in a meeting, specifically to exempt our groundwater standards from the RAINS Act. Here's what the RAINS Act does. For every administrative rule that a state agency like the DNR proposes, if there is a cost that's projected to go above $10 million in a 2-year period, they are required by law under the RAINS Act to essentially pause all administrative rulemaking because of the RAINS Act. And so what Governor Evers is asking for is an exemption for that, so that we can continue moving forward as a state with our DNR and promulgating or creating and enacting groundwater standards for PFAS. And I think that's really important, because the governor today is not just asking for us to get that money out the door and to agree across, with both members, both parties across the aisle, to get that money out of the door expeditiously, but he's also asking, and I strongly agree with this request, that we exempt PFAS groundwater standards from the RAINS Act so the DNR can continue to do their job to protect people's health across the state of Wisconsin. So the ball is in the legislature's court, and as a state legislator who takes this issue very seriously, I am publicly committing to working with anyone and everyone who really wants to get something done before the end of session. I will say, just inside baseball here, we only have a few months left of session. Typically, the State Senate and State Assembly adjourn between February and March of every year, and if we don't get it done, I'll continue to call for them to act and to work with us. But at the end of the day, we have a responsibility and a moral duty to the citizens of our state, including here in Wausau, to work together to get results for the greatest number of people. And on this issue, no one can afford to wait. No one should have to pay the cost of pollution themselves, especially when they aren't responsible. And so I appreciate Governor Evers' leadership on asking Senator Coles and Senator Wimberger to work together with all of us in the legislature in introducing this bill to exempt PFAS groundwater standards from the RAINS Act so the DNR can move forward to protect our health. In addition, I appreciate Governor Evers' urgent call to get that $125 million out the door to affected communities like Wausau ASAP. So let's make sure the legislature does the same. I want to encourage all community members to reach out to their state senator and their state representative and ask them where they stand on this and what they're doing for PFAS, because this is an urgent issue that deserves our attention. Even as we head into the holiday season, the legislature should still be working, so let's get this done. With that, we are open to any questions you may have.